I was 5 years into my career at Tech Fusion, pouring my heart and soul into every line of code I wrote. The promotion to lead developer was so close I could taste it. All those late nights and sacrificed weekends were about to pay off. Then I walked into the conference room that Thursday morning to find Jason, my manager, being congratulated for the algorithm I had created. My algorithm. The one that would revolutionize our company. I felt my world collapse as I stood there invisible. But what Jason failed to realize was who he was really dealing with. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on the backstabber who tried to ruin my career, drop a comment letting me know if you have ever had someone take credit for your hard work, and hit that subscribe button to join others who have overcome workplace betrayal. Growing up in Chicago taught me the value of hard work. My father worked 2 jobs to keep our family afloat, while my mother balanced part-time work with raising 3 kids. Nothing was handed to us. From an early age, they instilled in me the belief that dedication and perseverance would eventually pay off. Computers fascinated me from the moment my elementary school got its first computer lab. While other kids played games, I wanted to know how they worked. By high school, I was teaching myself programming languages from books borrowed from the public library. When college came around, my family could not afford to send me to a prestigious university, so I attended community college while working at an electronics store to pay tuition. Those were tough years, balancing classes with work, often studying deep into the night. But the hard work paid off when I secured an internship at a small tech startup during my final semester. That internship taught me more about real-world software development than any classroom ever could. After graduation, I jumped between contract positions until landing an interview at Tech Fusion. It was not a household name like Google or Microsoft, but it was a growing company with innovative projects and room to advance. When I received the job offer as a junior developer, I accepted immediately, seeing it as my big break. The early days at Tech Fusion were everything I had hoped for. The company had about 70 employees and the culture felt like family. Our CEO, Martin Davis, knew everyone by name and frequently checked in on projects personally. My direct supervisor, Angela, was supportive and recognized good work. I thrived in that environment, quickly earning a reputation as someone who could solve difficult problems and deliver on time. 2 years in, things began to change. The company was growing rapidly, doubling in size within 18 months. New management layers were added, and the intimate culture started shifting towards something more corporate. Angela moved to another department, and several new managers were brought in from larger tech companies. That is when Jason Wilson entered my life. He was hired from outside to lead our department, bringing what the executives called big company experience. From day one, something felt off about him. His smiles never reached his eyes, and he seemed more interested in looking good to upper management than in the actual work we were doing. During my 3rd year, Martin announced a major new initiative. Tech Fusion needed to develop an algorithm that could optimize cloud resource allocation, potentially saving our clients millions in operational costs. Such an algorithm would put us ahead of much larger competitors and possibly transform the company. When the project was announced, Jason called me into his office. "Tyrone," he said, leaning forward with that artificial smile, "I have been watching your work. I think you have the skills to lead this project. If you can deliver, I can guarantee you will be promoted to lead developer." The opportunity felt like everything I had been working toward. Lead developer was 2 levels above my current position, and would mean a significant salary increase, more autonomy, and the chance to direct my own projects. I accepted immediately. What followed were 9 months of the most intense work of my life. I poured everything into developing the algorithm, often sleeping on the office couch rather than going home. Weekends became extensions of the work week. I missed family gatherings, canceled dates, and basically put my personal life on hold. As the project progressed, I began to notice Jason taking an unusual interest in the technical details. He had never shown much understanding of the actual coding before preferring to focus on schedules and presentations. Now he was asking for detailed explanations of my approaches, requesting copies of my notes, and insisting on frequent one-on-one meetings to review progress. I thought nothing of it at the time. In fact, I felt flattered by his interest and willingly shared everything. When he suggested moving our project documentation to a shared drive he controlled, I agreed without hesitation. When he asked me to explain complex parts of the algorithm again and again, I patiently walked him through every detail. I was naively assuming his interest was about properly representing the project to executives. After 9 exhausting months, the algorithm was finally complete. My creation exceeded even the ambitious efficiency targets set by the company. Internal tests showed it could reduce cloud computing costs by up to 37% while maintaining performance. This was the moment I had been working toward. The final presentation to the executive team was scheduled for a Wednesday, 2 days before I received a call that would change everything. My grandmother, who had helped raise me after my father passed away, had suffered a severe stroke. The doctors were not optimistic. I immediately called Jason to explain the situation. "I need to fly back to Chicago tonight," I told him, my voice breaking. My grandmother might not have much time left. "Of course," Jason replied, his tone sympathetic. "Family comes first. Do not worry about the presentation. I can cover for you." "Are you sure?" I asked. "This is the culmination of 9 months of work." "Absolutely," he assured me. "I understand the algorithm well enough to present it. We have been reviewing it for months." "Right. Go be with your family. We can celebrate your promotion when you return." I thanked him profusely before rushing home to pack. As I boarded the plane to Chicago, my mind was split between worry for my grandmother and relief that the project was in good hands. How terribly wrong I was. My grandmother stabilized after 2 days in the hospital. Once doctors confirmed she was out of immediate danger, I decided to return to work. I had missed the big presentation, but was eager to hear how it went and to tie up any loose ends before my promotion became official. I walked into the office on Friday morning, expecting congratulations. Instead, I was met with strange looks and awkward silences. My team members, usually chatty and friendly, barely made eye contact. When I greeted Zach, a fellow developer I had often collaborated with, he mumbled something and hurried away. Confused, I settled at my desk and opened my email. There I found a company-wide message sent the previous day. "Congratulations to Jason Wilson for his breakthrough algorithm that will revolutionize our cloud services offering. His innovative approach has produced estimated savings of $40% for our clients. Jason will be presenting this groundbreaking work at next month's Tech Connect conference." I stared at the screen in disbelief. There was no mention of me anywhere. Not as the lead developer, not as a contributor, nothing. It was as if 9 months of my life had been erased. In a daze, I walked to Jason's office and knocked on the door. He looked up momentarily, startled before regaining his composure. "Tyrone, you are back. How is your grandmother?" "She is stable," I replied stiffly. "I just saw the announcement about the algorithm." "Ah, yes," he nodded, leaning back in his chair. "The presentation went extremely well." "The email credits you for the entire project," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "There is no mention of my work at all." Jason's expression hardened slightly. "Well, it was a collaborative effort, was not it? The whole team contributed." Collaborative? I could not believe what I was hearing. I designed that algorithm from scratch. I wrote every line of code. He waved dismissively. "You provided a foundation, certainly. But the breakthrough optimizations that impressed the executive team came during our review sessions. Surely you remember our discussions about recursive functions and parallel processing approaches." I remembered those discussions clearly. They were times when I had explained complex concepts to him, not the other way around. But now he was twisting everything, making it sound as if he had guided me to solutions I could not have reached alone. "This is not right," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "That was my work." Jason's face hardened. "Careful, Tyrone. This kind of attitude will not help your career. We all know software development is a team effort. No one creates anything entirely alone." Before I could respond, his phone rang. He held up a finger. "I need to take this. We can discuss your concerns later if necessary." As I left his office, I felt physically ill. In the hallway, I overheard two marketing team members discussing plans for the Tech Connect conference. Jason is going to be announced as Innovation Director at the conference, one was saying. Martin is making it official next week. Innovation Director. 2 levels above Lead Developer. The position Jason had promised to me was actually going to him based on my work. The next 2 weeks were the darkest of my professional life. I watched helplessly as Jason was celebrated throughout the company. When I tried to speak to other managers about the situation, they seemed uncomfortable and changed the subject. Several colleagues who knew the truth avoided me, entirely unwilling to risk their own positions by contradicting the official narrative. I could not sleep. My appetite disappeared. I began having anxiety attacks before going into the office each morning. Several times I came close to quitting on the spot. I updated my resume and browsed job listings during lunch breaks, imagining the relief of walking away from the whole situation. Meanwhile, I withdrew from my colleagues, taking lunch alone and minimizing interactions. The sense of betrayal was too raw, and I could not bear the thought of making small talk with people who were watching my work being stolen without speaking up. The final insult came 3 weeks after the presentation. Jason called a department meeting to discuss implementation of his algorithm. At the end, he announced the project teams. "And Tyrone," he said with a smile that made my skin crawl, "you will be on the implementation support team. Your familiarity with some aspects of the algorithm will be useful as we roll it out." Implementation support. He was assigning me to a junior role, implementing my own creation. As people filed out of the conference room, I remained seated, too stunned to move. Everything I had worked for was slipping away, and I felt powerless to stop it. That night was my lowest point. I sat in my apartment staring at resignation letter I had drafted, cursor hovering over the send button. One click, and I could walk away from Tech Fusion forever. Start fresh somewhere else. Then something shifted inside me. A clarity emerged through the fog of despair. If I quit, Jason would win completely. My work would forever be attributed to him. My resignation would be seen as confirmation that I could not handle the pressure. No leaving was exactly what he wanted. Instead of hitting send, I closed my laptop and began to think strategically. I had been naive, but I was not helpless. I still had knowledge Jason could never fully replicate, and possibly evidence I could recover. This would require patience and careful planning, but I had nothing to lose. The next morning I arrived at work with a new demeanor. I smiled, participated in meetings, and acted as if nothing was wrong. Jason seemed relieved by my apparent acceptance of the situation, which only strengthened my resolve. My first task was documentation. At home, I searched through old email archives, finding messages where I had discussed early concepts of the algorithm with Angela before Jason even joined the company. I also discovered that I had emailed myself several iterations of the code from my personal account, each with clear timestamps showing the evolution of my work. While these were helpful, I needed more. I needed allies within the company, people with access to systems that could prove my case. I had isolated myself after the betrayal, but now I needed to carefully rebuild bridges. I started with Marcus in IT, who had always been friendly. Striking up conversations during coffee breaks, I eventually confided in him about a hypothetical situation where someone might need to recover documents from the company servers. Marcus, who had no love for management, understood my real question. Hypothetically speaking, he responded, email archives are kept for 7 years, and development servers maintain logs of who accesses files and when. Someone with the right permissions could retrieve that information if needed. Next was Sarah from the legal department. I made a point of joining her lunch table several times, gradually steering conversations toward intellectual property and credit for innovations. She mentioned that Tech Fusion had policies protecting employee contributions, though they were rarely invoked. The company actually has a significant interest in correctly attributing work, she explained. If patents are filed under the wrong names, they could be invalidated later. Over the next 3 weeks, I methodically gathered evidence. Marcus helped me access server logs showing my regular late-night work on the algorithm files. I recovered dozens of code commits from the development server, each bearing my digital signature. I even found audio recordings of early project meetings where I had presented the initial concepts. While building my case, I made another discovery. After receiving full credit, Jason had made modifications to my algorithm before implementation. Curious about these changes, I ran tests on the altered code and found a serious flaw. His modifications produced correct results under normal conditions, but would fail catastrophically under heavy loads, exactly the situation most clients would face during usage spikes. This presented a moral dilemma. The flawed algorithm was scheduled for implementation the following month. If I reported the flaw immediately, it would be fixed before causing any problems, but Jason would likely take credit for catching his own mistake. If I stayed silent, the failure would expose his lack of understanding, but could cost clients millions and damage TechFusion's reputation. I could not risk harming the company to expose one fraud. Instead, I created a complete corrected version of the original algorithm and secured it in my private files. I also documented the exact nature of the flaw in Jason's version, with predictions about when and how it would fail. This would be my insurance policy if needed. Then came the executive presentation for the implementation phase. I was required to attend as part of the support team, forced to sit quietly while Jason detailed his implementation plan. During the presentation, Martin asked about the algorithm's performance under heavy loads. "Excellent question," Jason replied confidently. "We have tested extensively under simulated stress conditions. The algorithm maintains optimal efficiency even at 300% of normal operating capacity." This was a blatant lie. No such testing had been conducted. I bit my tongue and said nothing. 2 weeks later, during initial rollout to internal systems, warning signs appeared. Several test servers reported resource conflicts exactly where I had predicted issues would arise. When junior developers raised concerns, Jason dismissed them as configuration problems. "The algorithm is sound," he insisted during a tense team meeting. "Focus on the implementation parameters." The following week, the algorithm was activated on client-facing systems with a small subset of users. Within 48 hours, the first crash occurred. Then another. As the user pool expanded, the frequency of failures increased. Finally, Martin called an emergency meeting of the entire development department. Jason was front and center, struggling to explain the cascading failures while avoiding responsibility. "We are investigating several external factors that could be triggering these anomalies," he said, sweat beading on his forehead. Martin looked unconvinced. "The pattern suggests a fundamental flaw in the algorithm itself." "Could that be possible?" Jason shook his head emphatically. "Absolutely not. The core algorithm has been validated through extensive testing." The room fell silent. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I raised my hand. "I believe I can identify the problem," I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. Jason shot me a warning look, but Martin nodded. "Go ahead, Tyrone." I stood and walked to the whiteboard. "The issue occurs during resource reallocation under heavy loads. The current implementation uses a recursive function that creates a deadlock when multiple clients request resources simultaneously." For the next 10 minutes, I explained the exact nature of the problem, drawing diagrams and showing exactly where the flaw originated. As I spoke, I could see recognition in the eyes of the senior developers. They understood not only that I was right, but that I understood the algorithm at a level Jason clearly did not. "How do you know all this?" Martin asked when I finished. "Because I wrote the original algorithm," I replied simply. "The version currently implemented contains modifications that created this vulnerability." Jason immediately jumped in. "That is ridiculous. Tyrone was merely part of the support team. He is trying to claim credit for my work now that there is a problem." Martin held up his hand, silencing him. "Is there a way to fix this?" "Yes," I said. "I have a corrected version that addresses the flaw. It would require rolling back to the original design with some minor adjustments." "How quickly can you implement this fix?" Martin asked. "I could have it ready by tomorrow morning." Jason's face had turned pale. "This is completely inappropriate." "I should be the one to Jason," Martin interrupted. "I think we have heard enough from you for now." He turned to me. Tyrone, please proceed with the fix. And I would like to meet with you privately tomorrow afternoon. The next morning, I implemented the corrected algorithm. By afternoon, all systems were running smoothly with performance metrics even better than originally projected. When I walked into Martin's office, he was reviewing a file on his desk. "Sit down, Tyrone," he said gravely. "I have spent the morning reviewing server logs, commit histories, and early project documents. I have also spoken with several developers who worked adjacent to this project." He looked me directly in the eyes. "Why did you not come forward immediately when your work was misrepresented?" I chose my words carefully. I was in a difficult position. It was my word against my direct managers. I had no proof at the time that would not be controlled by Jason himself. Martin nodded. "That is understandable, though regrettable. The evidence clearly shows that you were the primary architect of this algorithm. Jason has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation." Relief washed over me, followed by vindication. After months of suffering, the truth was finally acknowledged. "We need to correct the record immediately," Martin continued, "and I believe a significant promotion is long overdue." How does Systems Architecture Director sound? Systems Architecture Director. 2 levels above the lead developer role I had originally been promised, equal to the position Jason had taken. "That sounds appropriate," I replied, maintaining my composure despite the emotions swelling inside me. The weeks following Jason's exposure were a whirlwind. A company-wide email acknowledged my role as the creator of the algorithm, which was now functioning flawlessly across all client systems. Colleagues who had distanced themselves now approached with apologies and congratulations. Several admitted they had suspected the truth but were afraid to speak up. Jason was officially terminated after the investigation confirmed he had systematically misrepresented my work as his own. I expected to feel triumph when I heard the news, but instead felt a strange emptiness. His downfall brought me no joy, only closure. In my new role as Systems Architecture Director, one of my first initiatives was working with the executive team to revamp the company's ethics policies. We implemented new procedures for documenting contributions to major projects and created anonymous channels for reporting misconduct. Martin supported these changes wholeheartedly, acknowledging that the company's growth had outpaced its accountability structures. The algorithm itself became TechFusion's flagship product, generating millions in revenue and attracting attention from major industry players. At the Tech Connect conference, I presented our innovation, finally receiving the professional recognition I had earned. Yet despite these external successes, I struggled internally. The betrayal had left deep scars. I found myself hesitant to share ideas freely, always documenting everything meticulously, and questioning the motives of new team members. Trust, once broken, proved difficult to rebuild. Healing came gradually. I began mentoring junior developers, finding unexpected fulfillment in helping others navigate the complex technical and political landscapes of corporate technology. I established open collaboration practices within my team, creating an environment of mutual respect and shared credit that stood in stark contrast to my experience under Jason. I also worked to rebuild the personal life I had sacrificed. I reconnected with family members I had neglected during the crisis. I resumed abandoned hobbies and established boundaries between work and personal time. The promotion brought financial security, but I had learned that success meant little without balance and integrity. A year after the algorithm crisis, I received an email from Jason. He had found a position at a smaller company and wanted to apologize for his actions. After considerable reflection, I agreed to meet him for coffee. Our conversation was awkward but necessary for my own closure. I did not offer forgiveness exactly, but acknowledged his apology and wished him well. Walking away, I realized I had finally released the anger that had driven me for so long. The most important lesson from this experience was not about revenge or justice, though both played their part. It was about patience, resilience, and the power of truth to eventually surface. I learned that fighting back does not always mean immediate confrontation. Sometimes it means strategic patience, gathering allies, and being ready when the right moment arrives. Looking back, I recognize that the person who emerged from this ordeal is stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. The betrayal nearly broke me, but instead forged me into someone better equipped to navigate both success and adversity. True victory was not in Jason's downfall or my promotion, but in refusing to let bitterness define my future. I still work at TechFusion, now leading a department of 30 developers. We have our challenges, but I strive every day to create the supportive, ethical environment I wish I had experienced early in my career. And when new team members join us, I make sure they know their contributions will always be valued and recognized. What about you? Have you ever had to strategically fight back against workplace injustice? Or would you have handled my situation differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more experiences about overcoming betrayal and finding success on your own terms. Remember, sometimes, the best revenge is not just proving them wrong, but becoming stronger in the process. Thanks for listening, and I wish you the courage to stand up for yourself when it matters most.